November 1944, Rhine Valley, Germany. A Bristol Beaufighter Night Fighter slices through the darkness. Inside, Pilot Lieutenant Edward Schlueter, Radar Observer Lieutenant Donald Myers, and Intelligence Officer Lieutenant Fred Ringwald are hunting German aircraft. Suddenly, Ringwald spots something strange. I wonder what those lights are, over there in the hills. All three men turn to look. Off their left wing, about 8 to 10 bright orange lights are flying through the air at high speed. Neither their onboard radar nor ground control picks up anything. Schlueter turns toward the lights. They disappear. Moments later, they reappear farther away. The pilot tries every evasive maneuver he knows, rolls, dives, tight turns. The lights match every move, staying perfectly positioned alongside the aircraft. For several minutes, this aerial ballet continues. Then, as mysteriously as they appeared, the lights vanish, or when the crew lands and reports what they saw, they expect skepticism. Instead, they learn they're not alone. Dozens of other pilots, American, British, and even German, have seen the same thing, glowing balls of fire, orange spheres, red lights, following aircraft, matching their speed, defying physics, then disappearing without a trace. The airmen give the phenomenon a name borrowed from the popular Smoky Stover comic strip, Foo Fighters. Where there's foo, there's fire. For the final year of World War II, thousands of Allied pilots encounter these mysterious lights over Europe and the Pacific. Not once do the objects attack. Not once are they successfully shot down. Not once do they appear on radar. They just watch. 80 years later, the Foo Fighters remain one of aviation's greatest unsolved mysteries. Were they secret Nazi weapons? Natural atmospheric phenomena? Or something else entirely, something that would later fuel decades of UFO speculation. Today, we are diving deep into World War II's original UFO encounters. The name Foo Fighters emerged in November 1944 with the 415th Night Fighter Squadron, but the phenomenon itself began much earlier. The earliest documented sighting came in September 1941. When British pilots over Europe reported strange aerial lights, but these early reports were sporadic and often dismissed. Then came December 1942. Pilot Officer Brian Lumsden, a New Zealander flying with No. 3 Squadron's night flight, encountered two amber or orange-colored lights that followed him on an intruder mission over northern France. One light was higher than the other, ruling out navigation lights from a conventional aircraft. The lights pursued him until he reached the English Channel. Another pilot from his unit experienced a similar phenomenon the following evening, this time with a green light. On 13 October 1944, an RF crew from No. 178 Squadron based in Italy reported seeing lights following their aircraft over Hungary during a night raid on Székely Fehérvár. But it was the 415th Night Fighter Squadron in November 1944 that transformed sporadic reports into an official phenomenon. The 415th flew Bristol Beaufighters and later P-61 Black Widow Night Fighters, specialized aircraft designed to hunt German planes in darkness. These weren't rookie pilots. They were experienced combat veterans flying sophisticated radar-equipped aircraft. When Lieutenant Schlueter, Lieutenant Myers, and Lieutenant Ringwald reported their encounter on that November night, Myers gave these objects a name, taking a nonsense word used by characters in the popular Smoky Stover firefighter cartoon, Foo Fighters. The name stuck. Within days, other crews reported similar sightings. One crew near Hagenau reported two lights in a large orange glow seeming to rise from the earth to 10,000 feet, tailing the fighter for approximately 2 minutes. After that, the lights peel off and turn away, fly along level for a few minutes, and then go out. They appeared to be under perfect control at all times. Lieutenant Samuel A. Krasny encountered a wingless cigar-shaped object, glowing red, just a few yards off the plane's wingtip. Lieutenant Krasny, justifiably spooked, instructed the pilot to attempt evasive maneuvers, but the glowing object stayed right next to the jet for several minutes before it flew off and disappeared. Throughout December 1944 and into early 1945, sightings accelerated dramatically. Donald Myers further described the flight capabilities of these mysterious lights. "I turned to starboard and two balls of fire turned with me. I turned to the port side and they turned with me. We were going 260 miles an hour and the balls were keeping up with us." Myers concluded with his take on the phenomenon. "They don't attack us. They just seem to follow us like will-o'-the-wisps."
Lieutenant Wallace Gould described lights following his wingtip for several seconds before zooming at least 20,000 feet into the sky and out of the sight. As Gould said, "I thought it was some new form of jet propulsion plane after us, but we were very close to them and none of us saw any structure on the fireballs." The consistency of the reports was striking. Pilots described the objects as glowing red, orange, white, or amber, spherical or disc-shaped, highly maneuverable, able to match any evasive action, capable of extreme speeds and instant acceleration, appearing singly or in formations never hostile, never attacking, immune to gunfire, invisible to radar. Richard Zebart, historian for the nearby 417th Night Fighter Squadron, heard many of the stories directly from the 415th crew members. The pilots were very professional. They gave the report, talked about the lights, but didn't speculate about them. Still, the pilots found the sightings unnerving. "Scared shitless" was how a 415th pilot described feeling to Keith Chester, author of Strange Company, Military Encounters with UFOs in World War II.
On New Year's Eve, 1944, Associated Press war correspondent Robert C. Wilson celebrated with the 415th Night Fighter Squadron. When pilots shared their Foo Fighter encounters, Wilson recognized a major story. On January 1st, 1945, his article appeared on the front pages of newspapers across America. The public learned for the first time about the mysterious aerial phenomena haunting Allied pilots. On 13 December 1944, the Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force in Paris issued a press release, which was printed in the New York Times the next day, officially describing the phenomenon as a new German weapon. In its 15 January 1945 edition, Time magazine carried a story titled Foo Fighter, in which it reported that the balls of fire had been following U.S. AF night fighters for over a month, and that the pilots had named it the Foo Fighter. That the military took the sightings extremely seriously. If these were German secret weapons, they needed to be understood and countered immediately. Investigators were dispatched, reports were filed, analysis began. But here's what made the situation truly mysterious. Further investigation revealed that German and Japanese pilots had reported similar sightings. Both sides were seeing the same phenomenon. Neither side knew what it was. Each assumed it was the other's secret weapon. The Foo Fighters weren't confined to Europe. Similar phenomena appeared over the Pacific. Crews from Major William Butch Blanchard's 40th Bomb Group saw mysterious balloons over Japan in October 1944. Interestingly, Blanchard would later become central to the Roswell UFO controversy in 1947. The balls of fire phenomenon reported from the Pacific Theater of Operations differed somewhat from the Foo Fighters reported from Europe. The ball of fire resembled a large burning sphere that just hung in the sky, though it was reported to sometimes follow aircraft. One remarkable incident occurred on August 12, 1942, on the island of Tulagi during the Guadalcanal campaign. Marine Sergeant Stephen J. Brickner and hundreds of other Marines witnessed a formation of unidentified flying objects that everyone agreed couldn't have been enemy aircraft. In one case, the gunner of a B-19 aircraft managed to hit one with gunfire, causing it to break up into several large pieces which fell on buildings below and set them on fire. Yet even this didn't provide answers. No debris was recovered for analysis. As reports mounted, military officials and scientists scrambled for explanations. Theory 1. German secret weapons. The initial assumption was that the Foo Fighters were advanced German technology, perhaps remote-controlled weapons or psychological warfare devices. According to author Renato Vesco, the Foo Fighters were a kind of jet-propelled, automatically guided and ground-launched flak mine, dubbed the Fuhrball or Fireball. Vesco alleged that electrostatic discharges from klystron tubes would interfere with the ignition systems of bombers, causing engines to stall and planes to crash. But when Allied forces captured German facilities after the war, scrutiny of captured aircraft factories and testing facilities found nothing that resembled the Foo Fighters. None of the aircraft or missile designs that were discovered or design plans that were found matched the tremendous capabilities displayed by the balls of light. Captured scientists and technicians were interviewed, but could not shed any light on the matter either. It turned out that the Germans were as much in the dark about the phenomenon as the Allies were. Theory 2. V-2 rockets. Some propose that the sightings might be linked to Wernher von Braun's V-2 rockets. It's not too hard to imagine pilots unfamiliar with long-range ballistics comparing these rockets to a cigar-like wingless plane. The V-2 could even explain the glow, since its tail emitted a long, burning plume. But aviation historian Nicholas Veronico rejected this explanation. The V-2 rocket doesn't have the maneuverability. It couldn't turn on a dime and change its acceleration pattern. Once it started burning, it burned and produced thrust at 1 rating. Theory 3. St. Elmo's fire. St. Elmo's fire is a natural electrical discharge that can make aircraft wingtips glow during stormy conditions. Could this explain the Foo Fighters? St. Elmo's fire, a discharge of light from sharp objects in electrical fields, seemed unlikely, since the Foo Fighters exhibited such extreme maneuverability. Moreover, experienced pilots knew what St. Elmo's fire looked like. They'd seen it before and could distinguish it from the Foo Fighters. Theory 4. Battle fatigue and hallucination. Some suggested pilots were hallucinating due to combat stress. Amateur psychologists, military aviation buffs, and conspiracy theorists offered explanations, but none that the airmen found credible. They didn't believe they were hallucinating because of battle fatigue. Multiple crew members saw the same object simultaneously. The sightings occurred across different theaters involving pilots from multiple nations who didn't know about each other's reports. The consistency argued against mass hallucination. Theory 5. Ball lightning. Glowing balls from thunderstorms that behave strangely are occasionally reported, often called ball lightning, and no one knows what these are either. They may be the same as Foo Fighters. Ball lightning is a rare atmospheric electrical phenomenon where spherical, glowing objects appear during thunderstorms, but Foo Fighters appeared in clear weather and behaved with apparent intelligence. After the war, the mystery didn't go away. In 1953, the CIA convened a panel of 6 top scientists familiar with experimental aviation technology to determine if the lights constituted a national security threat. The Robertson panel, named for its chair, Caltech physicist Howard P. Robertson, offered no official conclusion. The panel examined Foo Fighter reports alongside post-war UFO sightings. They concluded the phenomenon didn't appear to pose a military threat, but they couldn't explain what it was. Documents from the investigation were reportedly lost. Eventually, the Army Air Command sent officers to investigate, but their research was lost after the war, Chester reported. This pattern of lost documentation would fuel conspiracy theories for decades. In recent years, scientists have proposed new theories based on modern understanding of atmospheric physics, the plasma theory. In 2024, a paper suggested the phenomena are in fact plasmas, or ionized gases, which are drawn to the electrical charge of aircraft, spacecraft, and satellites. Experts from the universities of California, Arizona, and the Harvard-Smithsonian argue that the strange properties of plasmas make them appear to behave like living organisms, even though they are not alive. Plasmas can grow in size and replicate, make contact with each other, and may feed off the electromagnetic radiation of satellites and spacecraft. This theory has gained traction because it explains many observed behaviors: the attraction to aircraft, electromagnetic fields, the apparent intelligence, plasma behavior, mimicking purposeful movement, the inability to shoot them down, you can't shoot plasma, the invisibility to radar, plasma doesn't reflect radio waves consistently, the variety of colors, different plasma compositions, atmospheric electrical phenomena. There are giant structures called sprites, which look like jellyfish 25 miles tall, elves, which are giant disks that can spread to 250 miles across, and upward lightning bolts from clouds called jets, which are 3 or 4 times longer than anything we can see from the ground. These phenomena were unknown in the 1940s. Modern atmospheric science has discovered electrical discharges at high altitudes that behave in ways that would have seemed impossible during WWII. The Foo Fighters represent the first modern military encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena during an era of sophisticated observation and documentation. The parallels to modern UAP encounters are striking. Objects that defy known physics behavior, suggesting intelligence or control, immunity to weapons, invisibility, or intermittent visibility to sensors, multiple credible military witnesses, official investigations producing no definitive answers, a series of encounters between U.S. Navy fighter jets and strange unknown aerial phenomenon, UAP, in 2004 and 2015, together with more recent incursions into American military exercise areas, has stirred up both interest and debate in the UFO subject. The U.S. government's recent acknowledgement of UAP as a legitimate subject of investigation has renewed interest in historical cases like the Foo Fighters. Were WWII pilots witnessing the same phenomena that modern Navy pilots encounter? Or are we simply seeing the same types of misidentifications across different eras? So what were the Foo Fighters? 80 years later, we still don't have a definitive answer. The plasma theory currently represents the most scientifically plausible explanation. Ionized gases attracted to electromagnetic fields from aircraft could explain the observed behavior, appearance, and physical properties of the Foo Fighters. But plasma theory doesn't explain everything, particularly the apparently intelligent maneuvers and the consistency of reports across vastly different geographic regions and atmospheric conditions. What we know for certain is this. During World War II, thousands of experienced combat pilots from multiple nations witnessed aerial phenomena they couldn't explain. These weren't panicked civilians or attention seekers. They were trained observers, often in radar-equipped aircraft, reporting consistent observations. The phenomenon was real. The observations were credible. The mystery endures. Perhaps the Foo Fighters were natural atmospheric phenomena that science didn't yet understand. Perhaps they were exotic plasma formations drawn to the electromagnetic signatures of wartime aircraft. Perhaps there are aspects of atmospheric physics we still haven't discovered. Or perhaps, just perhaps, there was something else in those wartime skies, watching humanity's greatest conflict, never interfering but always observing. The 415th Night Fighter Squadron veterans are gone now. The last of the WWII pilots who saw the Foo Fighters have passed away, but their reports remain meticulously documented, officially investigated, and never satisfactorily explained. The Foo Fighters remind us that even in our most documented wars, mysteries persist, that the skies still hold secrets, and that sometimes the most credible witnesses encounter things that defy explanation. Thank you for watching. If you found this exploration of WWII's Foo Fighters fascinating, please subscribe for more historical mysteries. And let me know in the comments, do you think the plasma theory explains it, or is there something more to the story? Until next time, remember, not all mysteries have neat explanations, and sometimes the unknown remains unknown.